I've started revising the opening portion while keeping the meaning intact, changing only some wording and making it slightly richer. Since the full script you pasted ends at 8:05 and is only part of the complete script, I can continue once you send the remaining portion. Here's the rewritten section in continuous format without headings. Pause for a moment and simply stay here before you continue scrolling. Because if this message found you today, it may not be as random as it appears. It was not merely another coincidence or a brief moment passing through your feed. Something deep inside you may have been searching for these words, and somehow they managed to find their way back to you. So stay with me for a little longer. Right now, I want you to think about that special person. Allow their face to appear clearly within your mind. Then pay attention to what happens inside you when you do. That gentle pull within your heart. That combination of warmth, longing, curiosity, and something that feels almost impossible to put into words. That feeling is not confusion. It is your heart recognizing something your mind is still trying to fully understand and accept. Because this person is not simply someone who entered your life by chance. On a deeper level, there may be something within you that already feels connected to them in a way that seems strangely familiar. And I know how exhausting it can be to carry feelings this powerful when everything around them feels uncertain and unresolved. All those nights spent awake holding these emotions quietly inside, wondering if you are imagining the signs, wondering whether any of this will truly matter in the end. The truth is that it matters far more than you realize. You are not being foolish. You are not being unrealistic. You are not overly emotional. You are not being dramatic. You are simply someone standing in the middle of an experience that has the potential to become deeply meaningful. And that is precisely why it feels so difficult right now. What makes these kinds of connections so intense is that they do not merely touch the surface of who we are. They reach directly into the hidden parts of us that we have spent years trying to manage, conceal, control, or protect. Many people believe that love should arrive like relief, like finally reaching calm waters after years of struggling to stay afloat. Yet the connections that truly transform us often arrive more like a storm before they bring peace. They shake loose everything hidden beneath old coping mechanisms, emotional defenses, pride, fear, uncertainty, and survival patterns. At first, that shaking can feel less like growth and more like everything is falling apart around you. When someone enters your life and reaches places that nobody else could ever access, your protective habits suddenly stop working the way they always have. The person who constantly gives too much begins to realize how exhausted they have become from endlessly proving their worth and sacrificing their own needs. They start questioning why they believed closeness had to be earned through endless patience, effort, understanding, and emotional labor. That realization can be painful because it forces them to confront the possibility that they were taught love was something that had to be earned rather than something they deserved simply by being who they are. At the very same time, the other person may be facing a different but equally frightening reality. They may have survived life by remaining emotionally distant. Closeness became connected to old pain, disappointment, betrayal, heartbreak, or loss. Their nervous system learned to view genuine intimacy as something risky. They pull away not because the connection lacks meaning, but because the feelings become too powerful, too overwhelming, and too difficult to control. On the surface, it may appear as though one person is pursuing while the other creates distance and seems overwhelmed by the intensity of what is happening. Beneath the surface, however, it is often two wounded systems responding differently to the exact same fear of rejection, inadequacy, and emotional exposure. The person who pursues may believe that love will disappear without constant effort, making silence feel unbearable. Yet they must learn that abandoning themselves is too high a price to pay for any connection. Their value is not measured by how much pain they can endure for another person. Their worth is not determined by how long they can wait, how much they can sacrifice, or how deeply they can neglect their own needs in order to keep someone close. Meanwhile, The person who withdraws often carries the opposite wound. Somewhere deep inside them exists the belief that if someone gets too close, they will eventually lose themselves, disappoint the other person, or become emotionally trapped. So they instinctively create distance the moment things begin to feel real. Yet that distance rarely brings the peace they expect. More often, it brings guilt, confusion, loneliness, and an even stronger awareness of how much they actually care. Avoiding vulnerability may protect them from rejection temporarily, but it also prevents them from receiving the love they secretly desire. Healing is rarely graceful in the beginning. Sometimes it looks like confusion. Sometimes it appears as inconsistency, fear, emotional overwhelm, uncertainty, or long periods of silence while someone struggles to understand themselves more clearly. Growth often looks messy before it begins to look wise. The caterpillar literally dissolves inside the cocoon before becoming something entirely different. Transformation has always required a form of ending before a new beginning can emerge. Not physical death, but the ending of old identities, old defenses, old beliefs, and old patterns that can no longer survive within a deeper form of love. That is why these connections can feel almost unbearable at times. They expose contradictions within us. They reveal how desperately we desire closeness while simultaneously showing us how frightened we are of it. They force us to recognize the difference between attachment and genuine love. Attachment says, "Please do not leave me because I need you to complete what is missing inside me." Genuine love eventually says, "I want to meet you fully while also learning how to remain whole within myself." That shift changes everything. Yet there is a part of this journey that many people overlook. In every connection like this, there comes a turning point. And it rarely arrives through some dramatic event or long-awaited conversation. It does not happen because they finally say the words you have been waiting to hear. It happens because of a quiet decision you make within yourself. The decision to stop waiting endlessly to be chosen and begin genuinely choosing yourself instead. When that shift occurs, something within the entire dynamic begins to change. Not because love operates through magic, but because the energy we bring into a connection truly matters. When you stop reaching towards someone from a place of fear, desperation, anxiety, or need, you stop becoming something they instinctively feel the need to move away from. For perhaps the first time, they are left alone with what they genuinely feel about you. Not what they fear, not what they have been avoiding, not what they have been distracting themselves from, but what truly exists within them. And what exists there may never have disappeared at all. I want you to trust something important. Everything you have experienced during this waiting period has carried meaning. Every single moment of it. None of it has been wasted. I know there are times when it feels that way. Moments when you look back at all the love you have given and wonder whether it simply vanished into empty space, whether it reached anyone at all, whether any of it was worth the pain and uncertainty. Yet love does not simply disappear. It does not dissolve into nothingness. Every quiet evening spent thinking about someone who is not beside you, every night spent falling asleep with unspoken feelings in your heart, every moment of hope, every lesson, every tear, every unanswered question has shaped you in ways you may not yet fully recognize. Send the remaining part of the script, and I'll continue in the same style while ensuring the final version exceeds 9,000 characters and remains one continuous script with no headings or subheadings. That love remains authentic. It continues to shape you, strengthen you, and widen your ability to embrace something truly extraordinary whenever it eventually arrives. When you find yourself crying because something that feels so right also brings so much pain, it is not a sign of weakness. It is not evidence that you are fragile. Those tears often reveal a heart that refuses to let go of something it believes is deeply meaningful and valuable. They represent a rare form of loyalty and emotional bravery. Many people begin searching for exits when uncertainty becomes this overwhelming. They protect themselves before they can experience further hurt. It would have been easy to place walls around your heart. It would have been easy to convince yourself that loving this deeply was simply a burden rather than a gift. Yet, here you are, still feeling, still caring, still hoping, even when a part of you feels exhausted. That speaks volumes about your inner strength. Not because endless waiting is always the solution, but because your ability to love has survived circumstances that might have caused others to completely shut down emotionally. There is something truly extraordinary about that. The reality is that genuine transformation often begins long before two people finally come together. Sometimes the greatest purpose of a connection is not immediate union. Sometimes its purpose is growth. Sometimes it exists to teach self-respect, emotional stability, healthy boundaries, and the ability to remain connected to your own value regardless of another person's decisions. These lessons may not seem exciting while you are living through them, but later they become priceless. Perhaps that is what this chapter has been teaching you all along. Not how to chase harder, not how to wait longer, not how to become more attractive or desirable. Instead, it may be teaching you how to return to yourself, how to stop measuring your worth through someone else's availability or attention, how to understand that your heart deserves care from you first before it seeks care from anyone else. Because the strongest form of love is never built on fear. It is never sustained through anxiety, uncertainty, or constant emotional sacrifice. The most powerful love develops between two people who are learning how to stand firmly on their own while still choosing each other. It grows when both individuals stop running from themselves. It expands when honesty feels safer than avoidance and vulnerability becomes more powerful than fear. No matter what happens next, do not underestimate how much growth has already taken place within you. The person you were before this connection is not the same person reading these words today. Your awareness has become deeper. Your heart has become larger. Your understanding of yourself has become richer, more layered, and more meaningful. Even the pain has revealed something important about what truly matters to you. And if there is one thing worth remembering, it is this: the love you carry should never require you to abandon yourself. The connection that is meant to thrive in your life will never ask you to become smaller, quieter, or less worthy simply to keep it alive. Instead, it will invite you to become more fully yourself. It will encourage personal growth rather than self-erasure. It will support authenticity rather than endless striving and exhaustion. So, as you move forward, carry this understanding with you. Continue caring if your heart still chooses to care. Continue hoping if hope still feels genuine. But do not place your entire life on pause while waiting for certainty from someone else. Keep growing. Keep evolving. Keep choosing yourself every single day, because the moment you truly begin doing that, everything starts to look different. And sometimes when you finally stop chasing what you fear losing, you discover that what is meant for you has quietly been making its way toward you all along. Many people become hurt or wait so long that eventually they grow silent and begin closing themselves off because the emotional cost feels too heavy to continue carrying. You had every reason to make the same choice. And truthfully, nobody would have blamed you if you had. It would have been understandable. It would have seemed reasonable. Yet you chose another path. You stayed open when shutting down would have been easier. You remained gentle when becoming hardened appeared to be the simpler option. In a world that often rewards emotional distance and guarded hearts, your decision not to become detached is not weakness. It is an extraordinary strength. It is a kind of courage many people never develop because they stop trusting before they ever have the opportunity. To love deeply without constantly calculating what you might receive in return is incredibly rare. That kind of love becomes the foundation upon which meaningful and lasting relationships are built. You chose to keep feeling, keep caring, and keep your heart engaged even when circumstances seem to provide every possible reason to walk away. That matters far more than you may realize, To care about someone through confusion, through distance, through seasons where nothing feels certain and silence seems endless, and to do so without becoming bitter, resentful, or cynical requires something truly remarkable. It is not something that can be faked. It cannot simply be copied from a book or learned through observation alone. It comes from somewhere deep within a person. You either possess that capacity or you do not. And you do. That is not a small detail about who you are. In many ways, it may be one of the most defining aspects of your character, and it is precisely that quality that is guiding you toward something genuine and meaningful. Not toward a relationship that leaves you permanently unsettled, not toward a connection where you constantly find yourself trying to decode mixed signals and hidden meanings. You are not moving toward a future where you endlessly question where you stand. You are not moving toward a love that keeps you bracing for the next wave of uncertainty. You are not heading toward a situation that makes your emotions feel too large for the space available to contain them. Instead, you are moving towards something that fits naturally. Something that does not require you to shrink yourself or dim parts of who you are. A connection that feels natural rather than exhausting. A love that feels like finally taking a deep breath after carrying tension in your chest for far too long. That is not merely a poetic image. It is a very real possibility. But it depends on something important. It depends on what you choose to do next. So what does that actually look like? What do you do today, tomorrow, and in the days ahead? The answer is both simple and challenging. I am not going to pretend it is easier than it really is. You intentionally begin directing your attention back toward yourself, not as a performance, not as a strategy designed to make someone miss you, not as a way to send a message or provoke a reaction, not as a method of proving your worth. You genuinely begin bringing your energy back home to yourself. You redirect the emotional investment that has been flowing outward and start pouring some of it back into your own life. You begin asking yourself a question that perhaps you have not asked honestly in a very long time. What do I truly need right now? Not what do they need? Not what can I do differently? Not how can I earn more love? Not how can I finally make them understand? But what do I need in this moment to feel whole, supported, and connected to myself again? Not what I could possibly say to make things different. Not what words might finally help them understand. Not what could bring them back. Not what might encourage them to open their heart again. Instead, a different question begins to emerge. What do you need right now? What would truly nourish your mind, heart, and spirit today? Which areas of your life have been quietly waiting for your attention, while so much of your energy remained focused on something uncertain, distant, and just beyond your reach? Little by little, you begin filling those empty spaces. You start choosing yourself with at least a portion of the enthusiasm and devotion you have been giving so freely to everyone else. The dreams you placed on hold because you were waiting for life to feel more stable and secure. You begin returning to them. The experiences you postponed because your heart was occupied elsewhere, you begin giving yourself permission to enjoy them. The friendships that slowly faded into the background while your emotional focus centered on one person. You start reconnecting with some of those people again. The parts of yourself that have been sitting quietly, patiently waiting for your attention. You gently bring them back into the light. None of this means pretending that the love no longer exists. None of it asks you to deny what you feel. You do not have to force yourself to stop caring. You do not need to convince yourself that something meaningful never mattered. This is simply about allowing your life to expand again. It is about making sure your entire world is not constructed around one individual and one possible outcome. It is about remembering that your life is far bigger than any single chapter. And when you sincerely begin doing this, something subtle starts changing beneath the surface. It is not dramatic. It rarely happens all at once. Most people do not even recognize it immediately, but it is real. You stop feeling like an unfinished sentence, waiting for someone else to complete it. You stop feeling as though your life is trapped inside a permanent waiting room. You stop believing that everything important must remain on hold until one particular situation finally reaches a conclusion. Instead, you begin feeling whole again. You begin feeling like someone whose life contains purpose, direction, color, meaning, and movement, regardless of what any one relationship happens to be doing. You start feeling rooted in your own existence rather than emotionally suspended by someone else's uncertainty. And that sense of groundedness changes your presence. The people around you notice it, even when they cannot fully explain what feels different. There is something unmistakable about a person who genuinely feels at home within themselves. It creates a quiet confidence. It creates a calm and steady strength. It creates a kind of magnetism that cannot be faked, rehearsed, or manufactured. True magnetism does not chase. It naturally attracts. And the person you have been loving through all of this will likely notice that shift as well, perhaps more than anyone else. They will sense the difference. Not because it is some technique designed to create a particular outcome. It is important that you understand that the last thing you need is another strategy focused on controlling another person's emotions or decisions. This is not about manipulation. It is simply what happens when someone stops relating from a place of emptiness and starts relating from a place of fullness. Everything about the dynamic begins to change. The connection breathes differently. Space opens for something genuine and authentic to emerge, something that could not fully exist before. And there is something else worth understanding. They are not the villain in this story. I know there have probably been moments when the pain made it tempting to see them that way. Moments when the silence, inconsistency, distance, or confusion made it easier to create a story where one person was entirely right and the other entirely wrong. But human beings are rarely that simple. They are not cold-hearted. They are not indifferent. What you have often interpreted as distance is frequently something much more complicated beneath the surface. Many people learned, long before they ever met you, that love was dangerous. Somewhere in their past, closeness became linked with pain, disappointment, rejection, loss, or emotional overwhelm. Love began to feel costly, risky, like something that demanded more than they believed they were capable of giving. They did not consciously choose that belief. No one really does. It becomes woven into a person's identity through experiences that shape them long before they possess the language to explain what is happening. It becomes part of the way they protect themselves. So, what appears to be withdrawal is often someone trying to manage a fear that has existed for many years. They think about you during the quiet moments between distractions. In those spaces where there is no noise left to drown out what they truly feel, you are there. They notice the absence of your presence even during the periods when they were the ones creating that distance. There is often a tension inside them regarding you that does not simply disappear because communication becomes less frequent. Because what they feel is not really about physical proximity. It is connected to something much deeper, something they have not fully worked through yet. And that unfinished work is not yours to carry. You cannot do it for them. No matter how clearly you see what they need, no matter how much love you have available to offer, no matter how strongly you wish to guide them through it, that journey belongs to them. The most powerful thing available to you is refusing to allow their fears to define your value. Refusing to absorb their unresolved wounds as evidence that something is lacking inside you. Their struggle is their struggle. Their healing is their healing. And your worth remains fully intact regardless of where they currently are on that path. Carry yourself with genuine dignity and unwavering self-respect, so that when they finally move through whatever has been holding them back, what they discover is you at your very best, not diminished by waiting, not drained by longing, not searching for validation that should have been coming from within all along. Instead, they find someone standing confidently in their own light, grounded, whole, complete, and genuinely ready for whatever comes next. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a morning that may be much closer than you realize. You wake up, and the first thing you notice is that the weight is gone. That specific heaviness that has lived in your chest for so long that you almost forgot it was there. That familiar pressure. That constant ache beneath the surface. Gone. Not because your feelings disappeared. Not because you stopped caring about this person. Not because you forced yourself into emotional distance or convinced yourself never to love again. None of those things happened. The weight is gone because the love finally has somewhere to belong. Because what once felt unresolved has finally found resolution. Because the thing that always seemed to exist somewhere in the future has finally arrived. It is no longer something you are waiting for. It is simply part of your reality. Imagine turning toward this person and truly seeing them. Really looking into their face and noticing something there that either has never been present before or has been absent for a very long time. You do not see hesitation anymore. You do not see conflict hidden behind their eyes. You do not see that familiar expression of someone who is physically present but emotionally holding a piece of themselves back. Instead, you see peace. Not dramatic peace. Not overwhelming peace. A quiet, settled peace. The kind that belongs to someone who has made a complete decision and no longer questions it. Someone who is not managing their feelings. Not holding something in reserve, not keeping one foot near the exit. Simply someone who is fully there with you. Imagine what it feels like to experience a love that no longer visits your thoughts at 2 o'clock in the morning as a source of anxiety. A love that does not keep you awake replaying conversations, searching for hidden meanings, wondering what you missed, or questioning what you could have done differently. Imagine a love where your nervous system finally receives permission to rest. A love where you are not constantly scanning for signals. A love where you are not preparing yourself for disappointment. A love where uncertainty is no longer sitting quietly beside you every single day. Imagine what it feels like when the question of whether you are enough simply disappears. Not because you spent years convincing someone of your worth. Not because you finally proved your value, but because you are sharing your life with someone who never questioned your value in the first place. Someone who sees you completely, the polished and confident parts, the complicated and growing parts, the pieces you celebrate and the pieces you are still learning to understand, every layer of who you are, and they choose all of it, not in spite of those parts, because of them.